Welcome back to the Fresh Freedom Podcast, where we bring you an inside perspective with the freedom-focused representatives who are fighting for conservative values and defending your constitutional rights. Joining me today is my fellow conservative member of Congress, Josh Brackeen from Oklahoma's 2nd District. And with us, we have special guests, Congressman-elect Nick Begich from Alaska and Bob Onder from Missouri's 3rd District. Nick Begich is a small business owner and comes from a family of people that have been involved in public service for quite some time. And Bob is an America First conservative who I had the honor of serving with in the Missouri State Senate, where we took on the swamp in Jeff City, and now we're joining back together, take on the swamp here in D.C. All 4 of us tonight, this is a unique thing, we're members of the Club for Growth Fellowship Program. And so, guys, it is exciting to see new reinforcements come to Washington, D.C.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and let me add on to, for those who say, what does that mean, Club for Growth Fellowship? Club for Growth has a scoring index. So when you see someone on the Club for Growth index based upon their years of service and votes in Congress, you get a true sense of who is voting with fiscal discipline in mind, which is a rare component in Washington, D.C. with a $35 trillion debt, go figure. And so they look across the country for people that they know based upon their history, whether on the state level or otherwise by reputation, they know will be fiscal conservatives. And so they grafted into this 6-month program, year program rather. All 4 of us over the last 3 or 4 years at different seasons, the 3 of us were in the very first class they did this fellowship of 22 to go through learning more about different conservative ideals. And then Bob was the class after us. And so for this group to look and go, here's true fiscal conservatives, and then now all 4 of us a few years later to be in Congress.
Along with Andy Ogles.
Along with Andy Ogles, that's correct.
Right.
Andy's another member of Congress
awesome.
that was a part of the fellowship program that only started a few years ago.
So you guys are fresh off the campaign. Nick is still battling through final votes. This has been an emotional roller coaster, I'm sure. What has it been like these last few weeks?
I'll tell you, what we experienced in our campaign, a great deal of lying from the left. It was unbelievable. I know we saw that at the national level, but we certainly saw it at the congressional district level. Just absolute abandon of all principles, of all truth, abandonment of policy.
Negative ads had a little kernel of truth, right, at least?
Oh, yeah, and some of these ads they had no kernel of truth at all.
Nick, expound on one. I saw some that they were using pretty uniformly in different congressional races where they would try to make the Republican look like the one who was not trying to be in favor of border security.
That's
Is
true.
that one of the big ones they did for both of you all?
That did come up.
Yeah.
And
they twisted it to make it look like you weren't in favor of border security and your Democratic opponent was.
There was some of that, and there was also, this concept in our race where my opponent was trying to paper over some of her votes where she had voted against border security multiple times and was saying, trying to make the claim that she was for border security. And we had the facts on our side, but they had a lot of money on their side. We were outraised in our principal campaign committee more than 5-1. 5-1. So we had limited airspace, and what happens is, for folks who are observers of campaigns, you'll know what happens is if you've got the money, you can control the message, and if you've got a little bit of money, you've got 30 seconds, a couple of messages. They've got to be the most important ones, and if you start responding to those messages being pushed by the left, now you're running their campaign.
How do you advertise effectively in a campaign in Alaska? I would imagine it's a little different than Missouri.
I'll tell you what.
They don't have dog sleds in Missouri.
Right. Yeah. So, well, we don't campaign by dog sled, but I believe there were some dog sleds in at least one of the commercials that I saw. But in Alaska, it's a lot of social media.
Okay.
So thankfully Elon Musk has been rolling out his satellite network. It does reach the bulk of our state. So we've got Starlink throughout the state. So social media is big. Facebook's still big in Alaska. Twitter not so much. But then you've got your major media markets. TV, radio's big as well because in a vast state like that, radio travels a little further. So all those are important medium. We had a ton of mailers. I mean, I walked by several people next to our P.O. box at different times, and that P.O. box was just absolutely stuffed.
Were any of those delivered by dog sled?
They may have been.
No.
So, Bob, you had a different election. Yours is
Yes.
very solidly Republican.
Yes.
Yours is too, but because of your crazy jungle primary or whatever you call it.
Right choice voting.
Right choice
Voting, yeah.
That's you had a tough general. But Bob, your primary, tell us about you had this DC swamp coming
Bob,
in against you.
describe your geographically in Missouri.
Yes.
He's got
Southwest Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah, I have from the exurbs of St. Louis out into central Missouri. So I have Columbia, Missouri, which is a college town, a lot of woke professors, all the way down to Jefferson City, the seat of government, all the way down to the Lake of the Ozarks and extending them back.
Okay,
to
so you
Missouri.
guys share some
big
of that
C.
pretty hill country.
Yeah, we both have really pretty districts. Yeah, and I had the same thing. My general election was not difficult at all, but it was a really competitive primary, fifth most expensive primary in either party in the country. And we had the same thing. No, not even a kernel of truth to some of the attacks against me, and we were outspent also. When I was in the Missouri House, I passed the strongest state law in the country to fight illegal immigrations. Wow. They were calling me Open Borders Bob.
Wow.
I had the Donald Trump's endorsement. They were calling me a never Trumper.
I experienced that in my race.
Yeah, they
2 years
said
ago.
Josh and I wanted to defund the police.
They said that about us
But I
2
think
years
that
ago.
those kind of ads.
Well, that's
people
Eric, because
know.
you and I were voting against all the bloated budgets that came up in front of us in front of the Missouri Senate. Right. So they found some little kernel in the budget somewhere that had something to do with the police. And Eric and Bob were defunding the police.
To me, I think when they go
unreal.
that far crazy in their attack, I think the
people
public,
don't believe it.
People go, "There's not."
People don't believe it.
It's funny. He and I got to Congress, and we were like, they ran that on YouTube.
Yeah,
to
right,
watch
exactly.
you two
Yes.
compare notes and
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
We had an ad. So in Alaska, we're a resource state, right? So oil and gas, mineral development, timber, fishing, all important resources to us. My opponent just before a fisheries debate, a 2-hour debate on fisheries, she releases an ad saying that if I'm elected, there will be no more fish in all of Alaska.
If you were elected, Nick,
I'm elected, yes.
you were anti-fish?
No, absolutely not. But there would be no fish. And somehow, so somehow I'm Neptune or Poseidon or something. I can just stop the fish from existing.
Were you clubbing the baby whales too, Nick?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So but what's interesting is, to your point, right? The most outrageous lies, when they're called out, it discredits the entire campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's what we made an effort to do. We said, look, these are outrageous. They're
I
ridiculous.
felt the same way.
Yeah.
I felt the same way because voters don't like to be lied to.
Right.
So they might be confused for a little while, but when they figure out the truth, they're done with your opponent after that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, so now let's transition to you. These last few weeks, you guys are coming in. It's a roller coaster. You began orientation Sunday or yesterday?
I think technically tonight. Yep.
So how many in your class? How many in your class? I mean, I know we got some that maybe to be added, but how many in your class right now?
59 right now.
59
Democrats and
new
Republicans. 30 new Republicans.
Isn't that amazing?
29 new Democrats. A few of us on the bubble waiting for races to be called.
How many new Republicans?
30.
30 of the 59.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your indoctrination 2 weeks. This is where the swamp gets their hooks
Suck you into the swamp, huh?
Tell you, we know you have great ideas.
Yeah. Don't agree to anything until you really think it through, right?
Yeah.
Right.
My mother taught me something. When somebody says something, you're tempted to have to feel like you got to respond. Oh, well, hum. Oh, well, hum.
Yeah.
It's a great response.
Well,
If you feel like something's got to come
my
out of your
mom
mouth.
always used to say, "Ain't that something?"
So what's it been like these last couple? I'm sure everybody all says now that they voted for you. Right?
Oh yeah, everyone.
And then
voted.
everybody then is calling you up wanting a job.
Well, you get a lot of Well, there's a lot of that. I will tell you. I mean, if we had a position for every person that was looking for a position, boy, you talk about bloated government. Oh my gosh! Thankfully, they limit us with a budget. right? Which is a good thing for the
Yep.
American people. But we've had a lot of inbound inquiries, people from my home state, people from here in D.C., folks that are looking maybe to advance their careers. There are a number of people, I will say, that are focused on the cause and they really want to see good policy move forward. That's
Yep.
encouraging.
Are
When
you
I
guys
see
looking
that,
at the
it's great.
CPI pool of resumes?
Yes.
Conservative Partnership Institute, Jim DeMint's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Another plug for CPI. As you all know, there's a lot of people that come up here, and how you hire really determines what's in your ear.
And then there's the leadership races where you're getting phone calls from people you've never met that want you to vote for them for the, the junior assistant to the homecoming,
There you go.
All sorts of positions you didn't know existed before you
right.
get here. Yeah.
So, okay, this is really exciting. The election went better than we possibly could have
Yes.
imagined. We now have all three branches. Sadly, we don't have 60 in the Senate, but I think that we can get a lot done. First 100 days. What do you guys want to see happen first 100 days?
I'll let you two start because you guys are the
Well, I'll
shine
tell
on
you.
the
So
show today.
my answer can be a little different than a lot of people's answer because I'm one who really believes, and I'm a little biased, I'm from Alaska, but I believe that the pathway to America's prosperity begins with Alaska. And it's about unlocking the resources of my home state. You know, Alaska is about 2.5 times the size of Texas. We're a big state. We're a young state. 1959. So we're pretty young. We need roads, we need rail, we need ports. So we need the infrastructure, but we need it for a purpose so that we can unlock the resources of our oil and gas potential, of our critical minerals, base metals, precious metals, rare earths. We have all those in economic quantities in abundance.
Just make sure I'm understanding you.
Yeah.
You're saying unleash the free market, get off the back of the regulatory state that is punishing
Absolutely.
exploration, and the roads will come because free market will help.
Correct, 100%.
Okay, just making sure
so the
people-
Biden administration has blocked Alaska's ability to access our resources and develop the resources that we have.
Yep.
They have specifically laid out 67 executive orders and actions targeting Alaska, specifically Alaska. Everything from restrictions in NPRA, the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska, ANWR, which you've probably heard much about, right? The 1002 area of ANWR. We had leases under the Trump administration that have been pulled by the Biden administration. They've taken more than 13 million acres of Alaska lands offline.
So a lot of
development.
executive, I don't know if you heard the New York speech where Trump said, when I was president, for every new regulation, I said we were going to get rid of 2, and he did that.
Yeah.
He said this time around, for every new reg, I'm getting rid of 10.
Yes.
And
good.
so a lot of this will be taken care of through the executive action. Where are some things congressionally?
Well, here's what I want to do with that.
Okay.
I totally
Which we-
agree
which
with
we
you.
need to fix that because
that's
that's run
exactly
amok.
right. That's exactly right. So my view is we've got to take away some of the executive authority that's been weaponized against
right.
the states, lock the ability for the states to produce on their own, in my case, natural resources, right? And lock that in law.
So that a future president can't violate Article 1, Section
Correct.
1, which says all legislative powers be vested in the Congress, and play loose with the emergency powers of executive orders.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's my priority in the first 100 days.
Yep.
And
I've got a bill you need to sign. It's called the Bridle Act. Kat Kamek has the REINS Act, which is about stopping the bureaucracy that is rulemaking. The reins run to the bridle, and the bridle is where you get hold of these executive orders. If we could do the same thing on executive orders, so look at the Bridle Act.
Okay, that's
All right.
good.
Bob, first 100 days.
Well, amen to that. No question, our path back to prosperity is going to include unlocking America's potential to produce affordable energy again. Of course, securing the border, restoring safety and security to our country has got to be a top priority. Much of that Donald Trump will do through executive order by reinstituting those executive orders that worked under the Trump administration. But I would say another thing that Donald Trump has talked about lately is we need to defund the gender industrial complex. These children who are being poisoned with toxic hormones, puberty blockers, and operated on with gender transition surgeries. Medicaid is paying for most of this stuff. We need to stop it cold, and I think that is something we could do in the first 100 days. Donald Trump has expressed that.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Josh.
Yeah. I actually, not this doesn't sound like I talk to Trump more than I do. I've had only 3 conversations with him. One of my conversations, he relayed to me something he's saying publicly, so I don't feel like it, but how he would going to push back on that agenda. And he proved in his first administration that when he says something, he follows suit.
It seems like he's going to clean house, and he's going to, with Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy, they're looking to come in and have very bold plans to kind of, in wholesale eliminate a lot of jobs. And I think that right sizing of government is well needed.
And if our educational institutions cannot respect parents' rights and cannot refrain from indoctrinating our children, whether it be our K through 12 children or our higher education, they are not deserving of taxpayer support.
That's right. Yeah, the SAVE Act, Chip Roy's bill, which would take this enthusiasm around what we knew happened this time around, where people were paying attention to the polls. What I don't want to see is laissez-faire mentality for our next election cycle, for people to not remember the constitutional mandate that says the state legislature determines the time, place, and manner. And then you had states like Pennsylvania and Arizona that their courts were overturning the direct reading of the Constitution. And the judiciary was upending that, not letting the legislature determine the time of voting. So to that end, generally, we need to do what the federal scope is, and Chip's SAVE Act has a constitutional tie of naturalization, uniformity, which is a part of our constitutional mandate of the enumerated powers, and the limited place, the limited role for federal offices, where we need to make sure that there's photo identification that can't be abused in future elections. So I think that has to be a priority. I think we need to use the first 100 windows to address that. And to be pithy, I'm gonna pitch it to you, Eric. What's your deal for the first 100 days?
I'm excited about the Elon Musk Department of Government Efficiency program. I think that anytime we can reduce the size and the bureaucracy of government, and he reduced Twitter by 80%. That sounds like a good goal. Federal government. That, along with the Trump tax cuts. The eliminating taxes on tips, eliminating taxes on the overtime pay. These are very popular ideas. I think the American people, they gave us a mandate, and I'd like to see that happen in addition to the extension or making the Trump tax cuts permanent.
And then for the new things that would come with a place where you go, okay, there is going to be a dynamic score and there's a static score. For those, I believe in the dynamic score, so there will be more revenue that comes in, but there are some of us that will question, let's say, tax on tips. I want to make sure that the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits that are benefiting the left billionaires, we fully repeal that. We've got some I'm concerned about within our conference that may be a little hesitant. Promise made, promise. No, that whole green energy agenda is tax. It's tax theft. It's taking from the many to give to the few, a reward to those leftist billionaires. If that is the place to find the revenue to be able to do some things that benefit everyone, so I hope, in tandem with what you're saying, that those tax credits, the inflation reduction, as it was called, but had just the opposite effect. We go after all those tax credits to do what you're talking about.
Well, guys, it's exciting. These are really going to be some of the most exciting times I think that we will have in generations. We have a generational opportunity, and I can't wait to charge the hill with all 3 of you guys.
Absolutely.
And so, again, thanks for joining us. And thank you to all the Patriots listening. If you found today's conversation insightful, show us some love. Smash the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can catch Fresh Freedom Podcasts on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, X, and Rumble. Stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for freedom.